Shore. I hope I don't seem mean-spirited by essentially demolishing the question that was raised, but if men could have children, then they'd have to be fertilized by women. Otherwise, there couldn't be any genetic recombination with each new generation, and therefore each sex would be hermaphroditic, and therefore both sexes would be the same. Men would be women, and women would be men. So there would be no sex differences to account for. There would be only one sex in the human species.
Mm-hmm, yes. Very, very fascinating answer. Great. Yes. Okay, but let's work with sort of the spirit of that question, if I may, June. That's a very good answer and a thoughtful answer, by the way. Let's take it down to sort of the practicality of, let's say men were raising children more frequently than they are, as opposed to having them, which gets us into all the biological dimensions of that. But so I'll work with that in just a moment. But for a moment, let me say that it is true that probably what you're saying about the energy of men and women has become different in part because children needed from women that type of nurturing and that connection. And let me spend a minute on that before I get into the raising of children issue. One of the dilemmas that we have is that men have learned to love the family by being away from the love of their family. That is, men have learned to love the family by being at work. And as men are at work, we develop characteristics that are functional for the workplace that are often dysfunctional for loving our family. So, for example, a good CEO has to pay very careful attention as someone is talking to him or her about is this the right market? Where can this be placed? Is this the right person to buy from? And a good CEO listening to a sales presentation is going to be having to do 30 or 40 variables being juggled in his or her mind. Now, if I'm that CEO and I come home and June, you're my wife, and I listen and you're talking to me and I'm juggling 30 variables in my mind as you're talking to me, you don't feel very loved, you don't feel very heard. The emotional, what I need to do as a person who loves you, or if I loved you, if I knew you, if I would be, yes, right, would be to emotionally completely engage with your feelings, your fears, your hopes, and your words as you're speaking them. That is what women are able to do. So women being with children tend to be trained to do that more frequently, and whether that's biologically inherited or not is another issue. So that's sort of the biology of it. But the socialization of it and the outcome for children is astonishing. I made quick references before that children raised by single fathers do better in 26 different areas of measurement than children raised by single mothers. That is, just like many women who work in the workplace add qualities to the workplace that the workplace would not have, that lead to women being so much safer in the workplace than men are. So, for example, in the Marines, 400 people have died. What's the percentage of men that have died in the Marines and women that have died in the Marines? 100% men. 400 plus men have died, 0 women. So every single person in the Air Force who has died has been what? I mean, every single one. Only one person in the Navy that has died in the war in Iraq has been a woman. This is all within the framework of the war in Iraq. My point is there that women can sometimes, people who aren't trained in a certain area, can enter into, in this case, a hazardous occupation and treat the occupation in a way that produces different outcomes. Men raising children do extremely well in areas we would be shocked to find the case. So children, the more contact a child has with his father or her father, the more likely that child is to be empathetic. Now think about that. Normally we say empathy is from the woman to the child. Are women more empathetic than men? My personal opinion, yes. But empathy does not create empathy. It turns out that good boundary enforcement is more likely to force the child to think of somebody else's needs besides the child's needs, and the child is forced by the consequences of good boundary enforcement to think of somebody else besides himself or herself. So practically speaking, what June's question opens us to is a world where there's a lot of potential encouragement for women to be entering the workplace at high focus levels and contributing positively to that, and men to be entering the home market, the home place, and raising children. But we still aren't training our daughters to do this. So, for example, when I go to almost any party, and I walk into that party, and there's a single woman, I overhear the host say, "Oh, by the way, that guy over there is, he's in law school, and he's going to really be, he's right at the top of his class. That person's working in a law firm. That person is working for the government at this level. That person is working as a surgeon at doing this." And she's given all the human doing characteristics of men, not the human being characteristics of men. I don't hear very many hosts saying to a woman, "By the way, notice that fellow over there, he's asking a woman questions, and he's paying attention to her answers. And he's not pretending to know more or having already known the answer. And notice that he's not talking with the most attractive woman at the party. He's talking with an average-looking woman at the party. And notice that as he's talking with her, he's not womanizing with his eyes the more attractive women." That's the type of man who's showing personality characteristics that suggest that he would be very able to support you to be the type of top career woman that you might want to be. And if a woman wants to have it all, she needs to be re-socialized to value those characteristics in men so that she selects for those men and doesn't wait for that man to select her, that she's willing to take him out, pay for him, because that would symbolize the type of man who's open to being supported economically by a woman. But most women, when they contemplate supporting a man economically, lose respect for the man, and they back away from it, even if they aren't paid for on the first date. They sort of start shrinking. But that's probably a combination of biological and socialization. But it really is we can't separate biology from socialization. If you and I were married and you were our daughter, and you had and we started seeing you going out with a couple of doctors and lawyers, and then you were going, but you had this really strong interest in this artist who was really not going to be likely to make much of a living at all, and so we encouraged you to we made things a little bit easier for you to be with the doctor and the lawyer, less easier for you to be with the artist. And your girlfriend started saying, "What about that doctor and lawyer?" And all of that reinforced it. Those are all socialization forces that I'm talking about. But now you make the choice, let's say, of the doctor. You have children, and what type of choice is that? It's a biological choice. The socialization pressures you in to biological choices that create biological outcomes, your children. And so the children that you have from that socialization pressure become the children of the doctor and the lawyer, not the artist. And so when people argue, is it biology or is it nature? Is it nurture or is it nature? My answer is yes. It's both. It's overlapping. It's not able to be separated. So does all that make sense in terms of, so what this book, to me, what Why Men Earn More opens us up to is options for our daughters to have it all, but not to have it all by marrying men who are superstars, like when they want to be superstars. If you want to be a superstar woman, marry a man who will support you if you want children. It's fine for a superstar woman to marry a superstar man if there's no desire for children, but not if there is. And okay, say your name. Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute. I skipped Brad, and then I'll come to yourself. Brad? And is it Brad? Is that
yeah, it's Brad. Sorry, it was, I was going to get into the difference between the hoe and the plow, which it'd be too complicated to get into, but
okay.
But thanks for coming back to me. But
okay. Say your name.
Hi, I'm Christina.
Christina.
Sort of building off what you were last saying, if you read take an anthropology class, a bioanthropology class, they'll say, women tend to value achievement in men, men tend to value other things in
Beauty
women.
and youth.
And so I'm sorry?
Beauty and youth.
Beauty
basically.
and youth, exactly. And so I'm wondering if you think that there is still some inequity in what you're talking about, and that there might be greater trade-offs for a woman if they adopt the 25 ways to increase their pay, that there's another side of it that a woman might not be able to find, a very high-achieving woman would find it more difficult to find a man that would take the more traditional supporting role, and so there's greater risk, that there's a greater trade-off in trying to earn more money because they'll be less likely to find a supportive spouse or something like that than a man would.
Very good question. Anybody have any thoughts on Christina's question, and then I'll give my perspective on it? Okay. That question is so important that I ask that question on almost every radio show that I've been on